guys! Today we are doing another holiday scene, but we are doing a Christmas scene. So first I'm just washing in the background with this sort of deep blue, but with a lot of water. It's a very watery, deep blue. And while it's still wet, I'm going to take my number 3 grabby and I'm just gonna drop in some trees that are in the background. And then over the top of those, I took a bigger brush and just sort of washed water to let those sort of fade into the background and look far away. And now I'm just putting the base layer of brown on the tree trunk. And you guys know that with watercolors, it's about layering on layering on layering. So that first layer, I was just trying to get sort of the idea of where that stump would be or the trunk would be. And now, as you can see, that's the door of the little house. And Harold the Hedgehog, which we are going to paint together today, decorated his door because his friends are coming over. So I'm putting these various colors of Christmas bulbs, and they are just Christmas red and Christmas green, and I'm going to put some yellow ones. I didn't really have a reference photo for these decorations. I just sort of went by what I thought looked sort of festive and whimsical. And making them look like bulbs, you just make the middle lighter than the edges and then leave like sort of that white glare to make them look like shiny Christmas bulbs. And now I'm using a technique that I don't always use. It's an almost dry brush. So for that base layer of the wood, I put some brown on my brush and I drag the side of the brush up and down the planks of wood, and then that just deposits the color in that sort of uneven wood grainy fashion. And now I looked at my reference photo for the rest of this door, and then I just sort of went out on my own because you guys know that's what I like to do. So I made the light in the little window turned on because I thought it would want to be warm and lit inside his house. And I added a wreath and I put some different hardware on the door. And now I'm just sort of darkening in a second layer on the planks of wood. And before this is over, we are going to touch those planks of wood a bunch of times. It will be more than a handful. So I'm just darkening in the shadows underneath the hardware. And now I'm putting those little cross window panes on there. And once those dry, we'll kind of add some dimension to that. Now I'm just coloring in little bits of these presents that I sketched out. And I'm jumping around because, as I normally do, and what works, I think, best for watercoloring is to put a layer down in one area, and then so that colors don't bleed together, I'll jump around and paint a different area and then go back once that's dry to add the opposite color so that they don't bleed together. And so I'm looking at this reference photo, which I thought had the cutest little like forest fairy stairs. And I'm just dropping in the little shapes of, it's almost like my parents had a flagstone patio once, and it almost reminds me of that, where there's just stones, flat stones that are just slightly different colors here to there. And so, yeah, that's what I'm trying to recreate there. And I'm making the thickness of the stairs darker to give it just like a little depth. And now I'm just laying in the trunk for this tree. And in this reference photo, you can see the little presents that inspired my presents down below. And before I can paint the tree in, I'm going to put a little bit of the trunk the trunk of the tree in the background. And now I don't normally do this either. I'm using just a wet brush with no paint, and I'm picking up those little areas of the brown of the trunk, so that, as you can see, when I start dropping those green branches in, it's not fighting with the brown. You know, those areas are less pigment, so it doesn't have to try to overcome the brown to be seen. So that's what I did there. Just a wet, clean brush and sort of scrubbed out those little areas. And then I'm just using my number 3 grabby and a light hand to just wisp in those little branches. And then this palette has so many different greens in it. I was able to put some dimension by just grabbing a couple different greens. So now we're gonna paint this little lamppost. And if you guys have seen some of my other videos, like the crow standing on the lamppost, and I think I even gave a lamppost to Jessica, the little witch mouse, next to her pumpkin house. So you guys know I kind of I really like lampposts. I like painting them. I just love trying to paint the illumination within them. And yeah, I've put lamppost in quite a few of my paintings just because I love them. I may say the word whimsical more times than you'd like today, because I found this painting to be just that. So see how I'm just outlining with the black, and then I'll go in with a wet brush with no pigment on it and just sort of drag from those outlines of black and just sort of drag the gray through to make it look like metal. And that illumination yellow had dried. So see there, I'm just dragging the black to make it now have that sort of metallic gray. And because the yellow had dried, I can put those little stripes in there. And then I'm just sort of adding a darker black here and there to give the metal more of like a rounded, the post a more rounded look. And there it is. I don't know what it is. I love painting lampposts. All right, guys, look, it's a fall hedgehog, but I just decided that he was the cutest reference photo I could find of a hedgehog. So we're gonna make him a Christmas hedgehog. And as you, I don't know if you can tell, but I struggled a little bit with how am I gonna put a Christmas hat on this hedgehog that has all these spines. I thought about maybe putting spines like out above the white fluff and sticking out of the hat, and then I decided against it. So I'm making his scarf green, and I loved how this worked out, where I just brushed green, and then with a clean dry brush, I just grabbed the center, dragged it out, and that picks up the pigment, and it just made it look like fabric. I love how watercolor just lends itself to happy, not accidents, but I guess accidents. So now I'm looking at that reference photo, and I have to say, you guys know I always share with you when I struggle with something, and I was struggling with the shape of this little Harold. His name's Harold. I struggled with the shape of him. I was like, his body, because in the reference photo, his arms are both down, and I wanted him to be sort of holding on to the lamppost. So I put his arm up. But then I just was looking at him. I'm like, I don't know, is he too wide? Is the arm too low? I tell you, I just live and breathe by the reference photos. I need them, because when I try to do things just from my own brain, they start looking weird. But you're going to see later in the video how I'm gonna fix this arm. It's just, you know, you might look at it and go, oh, he's cute, he's fine, but it really did have a strange, like wide body shape, and his belly looked kind of flat, and I just wanted him to look a little well nourished. So yeah, I was just trying lots of different ways, and then I'm just, of course, putting another layer of red on the hat. So now, instead of leaving just the white paper for the white around his hat, I decided to use some of the metallic gray to just add some shadows into the fluffiness of the hat. And when that dries, I'm going to use white from a Posca pen to sort of pop out the fuzziness of the white part of his hat. And I'm using Posca pen white to put his little claws in. And now you can see, now I've got the Posca pen in my hand, and I'm just dabbing it on, and it really just makes that pop around those gray shadows. So when you see me use white on a brush, I take that Posca pen and I dab it on the paper, and then I pick up that paint with my brush. So it's not a white watercolor, because that just has not in the past worked for me. I've tried white gouache paint and that works, but this white Posca pen is just my love. I love it, I love it, I love it. So we're just gonna start layering up that tree. And the base of that tree just doesn't even look like I put a single layer. The colors dry so much lighter. So I'm just trying to, and I'm realizing that I'm like, well, I put these ornaments in, but now the background, so I'm trying to go around them and it's not working so well. And in hindsight, I probably should have left it white behind the ornaments, because I'm going to drop in some greenery and it would have really shown up better. So see, now I'm trying to do those wispy little greeneries, and it's really sort of fighting with the brown to be seen. But what we're going to do is we're going to use some neon green. This palette has neon green, and if you just use the neon green straight, it's wild and it's too much. But if you use it over the top of say brown tree trunk, it really helps to sort of pop out that green. See how all of a sudden you're able to see the greenery better? It's because I've dipped into that really sort of neon green, not sort of, neon green for sure. Oh look, I'm touching the wood of this door again. Layers on layers on layers. Layers on layers on layers. This is just such a fun little painting. It makes me want to head over to Harold's house for a holiday party. So I took that white Posca paint and I just sort of made little lines over the window pane, the little lines in the window pane, to give it some depth and make it look less flat. And now I'm just adding a different green over the top here. And I'm using, you can see that Posca pen in my hand, I'm using it to add the snow. Because this paint just, it goes over watercolor so nicely. And I'm loving how this is turning out. It's so cute. There's nothing that just gives me satisfaction in watercolor more than being able to create something that I'm seeing in the reference photo. Because when like if I was trying to use white watercolor, it just wouldn't be happening, and I would just get very frustrated and everything sort of gets muddled and starts just turning gray. So invest in one Posca pen, white Posca paint pen, and it will change your watercolor world. So now this is kind of fun. So I dropped these Posca pen white dots in, and I'm going to let those dry, and then I'm going to go in and after those white dots dry, I'm going to add the Christmas bulb colors on, because if I had just put the colors straight onto that green, you wouldn't be able to see them. You need that white background. See how I just dropped that red in and it really pops, but if I had just put it directly on the green, you just wouldn't really be able to see it. So that's also something that's very helpful with the Posca pen. Okay, so what I accidentally did was I fixed his little arm situation off camera, and I apologize for that. But if you see his body in between the lamppost and his little belly, that used to have all body and spikes, and it was just too wide. So I took a wet brush and I just sort of scrubbed it off. And you can sometimes do that with watercolor, and sometimes it doesn't work so well. This time it worked fairly well. It's not perfect, but it worked fairly well, and it made me feel better about Harold and his little figure. Look at him, he's just waiting for his friends. So we just need to sign it. There he is. And I'm going to peel off the tape. I did let the whole thing dry before I peeling off the tape. But he just turned out really well. And you guys, with all of my paintings, as I'm going through them, I always have a point where I like want to throw in the towel. Where I'm just like, oh, it's not working out the way I want it to. But I really suggest that you fight through it and keep going, and things do eventually turn out. I'm just taking my time getting this paper off, because in the past I've ripped the paper and I didn't want to do that. And there he is, Harold the Hedgehog. Thanks so much for painting with me today, guys. There he is. And I loved how that background turned out. I love it. I hope you enjoyed it.